All right. So the format of today's session. So the idea in terms of content is really there's a focus on training how-tos, any little issues or burning questions that you're stuck on in terms of everyday use or little bits and pieces that are just niggling away at you. But we're also kind of going to talk about how you can get involved with us in terms of working with us to make the product a little bit better. And also, I've had quite a lot of questions, particularly today, about the enhancements that are coming with the 7.3 upgrade. So we are going to talk about those today. One of my concerns about this, and obviously it's our first one, so we need to be kind and hope for the best. But in terms of kind of general Claromentis product information, the best places for those sorts of sources of information are either Discover, our support site, which you should hopefully all have access to, or the community site as well. And we'll be talking a little bit more about community later on because that's somebody's question. Right, so in terms of format, how are we going to do it? So I asked everybody to send over some questions because I was a little bit worried that we may not have enough content to fill the hour, but we will, and we will do that. So what I thought I'd do is work through the questions in terms of when they came through to me, but also when we are talking about a particular issue or your particular issue, I'm going to unmute you so we can actually have a conversation, which is lovely. And then at the end, once we've walked through all the questions I've had so far, I'm going to open it up a bit. And as we go through, if you have any questions at all that you would like me to answer or anything you want more details on, please just type a little message in the chat box and my GoToMeeting will bounce and I will be able to reply to you there. So hopefully that sounds okay for everybody. If there are any problems now, please type away. If not, we're going to get going. Cool, let's start. All right, so I'm just trying to see who is on the list and arrived. Okay, so the first kind of person questions we're going to look at are Candice's questions. So Candice, I'm going to unmute you now. So hopefully you should be able to hear me and I should be able to hear you. Hello?
Yep. Hello.
Oh, you are out there, that's good. I was worried for a moment it was just me.
No.
Brilliant. Okay, so I'm just gonna make my screen full screen so we can see everything. All right, so one of the first questions you sent over was about knowledge base, and more particularly how people know when an article has been posted to knowledge base. So is there anything you kind of want to add to that or any bits I've missed in that question?
No, it's just a couple of users have raised the fact that they have to sort of go to each app to see what's new up that day. We're quite new at using this, so a lot of people are still sort of finding out how to do things. But it was just brought up that it'd be really useful if there was some way of drawing to people's attention without having to put up something like a slider to say there's a couple of new knowledge base articles that have been published today.
Okay. So I guess obviously I'm going to be answering questions, which is great. But if anybody else listening in uses knowledge base and you have any particular way that you notify users, please let us know, and we can include that as we talk about it. Okay, so by default, when you create a knowledge base article, so let's go there now. So let's go into knowledge base. So when you create a particular article, so let's go over here and create an article. You'll see, so we're going to bypass all of this, but you'll see at the bottom what we have is the ability to draft, publish, or archive an article when we post it. So it's not like news in where we have that ability to send out a notification to all users based on this particular article being created. So that's the first difference. I think sometimes because they're both called articles, we expect that notification system to be up in the same way, but it does vary in that sense. So typically, when you're updating knowledge-based articles, other than guiding people, obviously, like you said, to have to go to the specific applications to find information, we have a couple of new components that arrived with the newest version of knowledge base. And there are two of them that pull information from knowledge base, which is this recent articles component over here on the left, and also this recent questions component. So for for organizations where knowledge base is essential and something that you're going to be using all the time, it's very worthwhile thinking about having these components on your homepage. If not on your homepage, you can also add them to a published template as well. So you might have a dedicated area for how to, or a how to publish page. You could then pull this component in there. But most typically, these components are on the homepage and they are updated with the latest, most recent articles and recent questions. You can see that the content team, as we're pretty prolific today, but you get the general idea. So we have a visual display on the homepage that kind of works and can show you quick snapshots into each question and article that you post.
That would do it. Yep.
Okay. And I mean, one of the things also to mention is that within knowledge-based articles, we kind of are aware of how notifications affect how information is shared. So it's something that we are thinking about and have acknowledged as feedback as well. So the hope is when we next look at knowledge base that we review that a little bit, and also how it integrates with Innovate. Because you'll notice at the bottom of a knowledge base article, so let's just click into how to have fun. If we scroll down the bottom, you'll see that you have this discussion area which is built around Innovate as well. So the hope is that the kind of the notifications that come with Innovate, when we next look at that as well, will integrate a little bit with knowledge base. So hopefully it'll be a lot more of a kind of notification full tool.
Cool.
And you can also see on knowledge base, there are just a repeat of those components as well. So recent questions and recent articles. The other thing I was going to flag, because obviously something that is quite new to knowledge base is more of an emphasis on people asking questions, which who doesn't like? It always works very well. But one of the things that happens when you have questions asked is that obviously it would be ideal if you could have some sort of notification of that question being asked. So if you're a category expert, so when you set up a category from the admin panel, so let's manage categories there and add a category. If we scroll down the bottom, if you are a category expert, I believe that you get notifications when a particular question is asked. So that can be another useful thing in terms of notifying people of new content within the system.
Okay. Cool.
All right. Okay, so the other question you had was generally around notifications and how they work. So can you flesh that out a little bit more for us?
I'm just sort of struggling to understand what I'm getting notified on and what I'm not. It is more manageable now than when we first started. People seem to be getting less than they were. Perhaps I've just streamlined the system a bit. And sort of just general good use of things like daily digest. Should it only come through on the daily digest in an email, or should the notification still be flashing that up? I haven't sorted out whether mine's doing both or just one yet.
Okay, so to start with, a lot of the notifications on the system tend to be triggered by content creators, especially ones that come from documents or news. So I don't know if you probably will have had one of these. You've had a notification that says I uploaded a document, or a document has been updated, etc. So when you are going through things like creating a document, so if we go and have a look at that now. So when we add a document, let's go back into here. So when we add a document, you can see that down the bottom here, we have the ability to send notifications out. So again, that's another trigger from our content creators sending out notifications to a group of users or everyone who has permissions to see a particular object. And that echoes in news as well. So when you're creating an article, let's go and do that quickly. So when you're creating a news article, let's add one. In this additional options tab back here, you'll see at the bottom we have send notification to all users with view rights. So there are many instances where the people creating the content, uploading documents, doing all that kind of stuff can send out notifications to everybody. And then there are a few that come automated from the system. So things like if you decide to monitor a document, if you are subscribed to a particular forum, you've made that decision, so it will automatically send you out notifications when new stuff is posted. And then a few other places. Mainly those automated ones are either from the system themselves or you deciding to monitor something. So in here, you can see I've got a few notifications. I've got a reply to an Innovate post that I posted, and I've also got some forum notifications to forums that I'm subscribed to. So again, it very much is me deciding which of these notifications I get, and also generated from content that I've created. So in terms of how they work on an individual application basis, it really does vary quite substantially in terms of what content is shared and what notifications are sent out. And also in terms of the content of those notifications, that can vary. But usually they are triggered by content creators. For example, I know that you guys use idea spaces quite a lot. So if we jump into idea spaces, you'll see in here when we create an idea space, again, content creators, down the bottom, you can see you've got send a notification to users who can view this idea space. So again, content creators notifying people about new things on the system. So bigger than that, I suppose, is how you decide to configure those notifications. And this is always something that comes up quite often, and I really try and mention it in the first training session, although there's so much information that I think it gets a bit lost. But how you decide for people to be contacted is quite important. So there are some notifications that will completely bypass the intranet. So by default, when you set up a brand new system, all messages are in system. So notifications about documents, news articles, Innovate posts, etc., are all in this little notification box area here. And then that kind of grows a little bit. If you use info capture, those notifications go straight to a person's email, so that bypasses the system. And then you can also send email reminders from e-learning and also policy manager. So for the big important ones, you can kind of bypass the system and send out email notifications regardless of the setting for communication within your intranet. So I think one of the things to understand from an intranet administrator point of view is that what you can decide as an intranet admin or as an organization is the default setting for communications for everybody on the system. So if anyone's on the system and you want to kind of walk through this as well, please feel free. And if you've got any questions, let me know. But if we go into here, my settings, you'll see in here we've got notification settings. And this will take you to a link to the communication application. So all of your settings and all of your notifications from Claromentis are controlled on an individual basis in this area. So you can either go to My Settings, Notification Settings in here, or you can go to Communication and then click on Settings down here, exactly the same place. But my point about decisions as an intranet administrator team is that you have the ability to set this default notification method. So in here, you can see that even as an individual user, I can come in and change how my notifications work. As administrators, you can change the default notification for people. But it's not to say that they can't come in themselves and adjust how this works. I can see my GoToMeeting is jumping, so let's just have a quick look at what that question is. It just went really quiet. Candice, are you still able to hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Bear with me a couple of seconds. Let's just check the audio. Okay. Yeah, we're still up. Adam, I don't know whether you want to log in and log out and log back in again to let us know if it improves. We'll give you a couple of seconds and then give me another, drop me another chat. Okay, cool. So back to communication. So in here, as internet administrators, you can set the default notification method for everyone in the system, but individual users can still come in and change how that works. So yeah, if you know, it's an interesting decision to make, especially when you first launch a system or you're trying to get more people involved in the internet. And it's always quite I guess, like a bit of a conflicting best practice, really, because the whole idea of an intranet is to improve internal comms, which ideally would mean less emails. So why would we want to send emails directly to people from the intranet? But obviously, when you first kind of launch, and also for particular applications, it's really useful to have them go to your emails for a reminder that, you know, the intranet is there and it's actually a central resource for you. So how this changes over time, if you make decisions about how, you know, you can change your decision about how people are notified by default as well. That's not a problem. But always bear in mind that your front end users can find this area and change it if they want to. Okay, so default notification methods, you can see here we've got in-system message only, copy to email, email only, then daily, weekly, and monthly digest. Now, Candice, you did mention the digests, so I'll talk about the way that they should work. So what they will do is, as you get notifications in system, they will automatically be read within Claromentis. And at the end of a day, week, or month, those items or notifications should be collated into an email and that should be sent out to you. So what you'll find is, if you have daily or weekly selected, is that when you come in, this will probably always say 0. But when you click on it, you'll see lots of red notifications that you can look at there. But at the end of the day, week, or month, you'll receive an email with a list of those notifications pulled together. And a very kind of typical setup, and one that really helps from an administrator point of view, I think sometimes, and also actually a front-end user, because obviously we use this system internally. And the way I have my notification set up is that particular applications will go directly to my emails. So one that we all kind of love is the idea that our holidays have been accepted, or, you know, we've added a training day or a sick day, etc. We need to know that kind of HR stuff. So quite typically, you would set your holidays to maybe copy notifications to email, but everything else you probably just want to see in system, etc. So again, this is all down to individual users. An application by application basis is individual user. There's no way as administrators you can control the way every application behaves in terms of notifications. But like I said, you can set that default notification method for everybody. Yeah, and then per application, really there's a range of different notifications that those can send out. Are there any particular applications in general that you're kind of having a bit of a problem with or thinking about using?
I guess if I set the holiday request one the way you've done, we'll get a bit better buy-in to it. No, it was just sort of trying to cut down. Some people were getting too many, because the other thing people are finding is when you click on that bell icon at the top of your screen, that sort of stays there, that until you kind of click off it, and also they don't automatically kind of delete once you've read them, which a few people have pointed out, but that's
Yeah.
to be put up as a suggested improvement, I guess, for future.
No, I mean, yeah, I suppose because what we're seeing here, even though we have our kind of list of latest notifications, what we're seeing here is a snapshot of our communication inbox. So
Right.
if we click view all, we'll see the same first, I think it's about 10 notifications in there. Mark all as red does do that, but again, it won't clear them out because it's still just showing
Yeah.
the latest inbox.
Mm.
But yeah, we will talk a little bit about suggestions and enhancements on the community
Cool.
later. So I definitely think that's one to
Cool.
think about.
Yeah. Cool. That's fine. Thank you very much.
Brilliant, no problem. All right. So let's jump back to GoToMeeting. Candy, so I'm going to put you on mute, but if you want to ask any other questions, please type back. And Adam is back as well, which is great. Okay, so let's have a look who we've got with us. Okay, so all right, so let's go for let's talk about 7.3, because we had I had a question about the enhancement features coming in 7.3, and I had this from I think 3 people, so we'll talk a little bit about that now. So there are release notes for the 7.3 upgrade. I think they're on community, and potentially on Discover as well. But what I'll do after the call is I will send you all an email with those release notes as well, so you can kind of see how that's working. But what I thought I'd do, as soon as we're on the call, is just talk you through the main features from the particular 7.3 release. So I'm going to talk about the ones that are a little bit more technical, and then I'm going to show you the ones that are obviously visual and aesthetic. So with 7.3 comes support for IE11 and discontinued support for IE8. So I know we were meant to, I think Brandy may be on the call, and one of the kind of restrictions that their particular organisation was facing is that a lot of people are on IE8, and the upgrade meant we don't support that anymore. So that's something to bear in mind as well. So that's support for IE11, but discontinued support for IE8. Also with 7.3 comes load balancing and better scalability. So if you have lots and lots of users, that's something that we're starting to consider on a huge scale for the 7.3 upgrade. And then there's just general performance improvements, so database caching, localization performance, and that kind of thing. And then we get to the kind of visual elements, so the bits that really affect your front end users. And really, other than you may have noticed over time, especially for those of you who are maybe you've been with us for a while, and you've had your system for a while, you'll notice that even looking at this homepage, there have been quite dramatic differences in design. But what's come with 7.3 is actual design and aesthetic changes to the way a lot of different things work. So the main kind of nice bits I'm going to show you in our applications menu now. So this area is content managed by you. That remains the same. So you still have the ability to add your links, change permissions on these links, etc. But now you have this filterable option. So let's start typing intranet, and you'll see it will filter out the results from the applications menu. Which I think is a lovely little tool, especially if you're into content managing the application menu yourself. So maybe you have a few external applications in there, or a kind of custom view for lots of different people. Also very, very handy for us administrators who have a massive list of applications to get to. So that's one of the new things. And this application filter also is in the admin panel now. So you'll see right at the top, we've got a filter there. So let's start typing documents, and it will pull that out for you as well. And again, for me, that's quite a nice one because I'm forever trying to remember the alphabetical order of icons. So now we've kind of streamlined that whole process as well, because it's always nice to think about our poor intranet administrators. So that's new. So filtering here, filtering in the applications menu for your front end users. And then the kind of big change in terms of looks in application terms is the people application. So let's have a look at before and after, because let's do a bit of that. So this is just a demo site. If we go to people, you'll remember this is our staff list. So all very straightforward, list of people, and you can change the content that's shown there. So the new people application, if we go to people, looks like this. So first of all, you have an A to Z view. So you can see we can flick through all of these people, and it will filter that out for us. We've also now got advanced searching as well. So before in 7.2, you had a keywords box. You could then filter people by role and group as well. And you can still do that, but if you click this small arrow here, you'll see that you've got an advanced search area as well. So you can actually look for dedicated profile information here, as well as using keywords. And also the look has changed. So now we've got these kind of cards with people's images. And also if you click into them, it's still the traditional profile view, but it's a little bit more kind of friendly. And you can also see you get people's job titles and email addresses there. So that's a new element of the front end. And there's also now quite a couple of useful back-end features as well, which are actually response to feedback we got about creating user accounts on the system. So we're going to go into people admin and look at those. So away from the aesthetic and into the functional. So let's scroll down and find people. Actually, let's use the filter. Let's put it into practice. There we go. So the people application now from the admin area, you still get that list, but you can see you've got the A to Z filter at the top. So that echoes from the front end. But also new is when we add a new user to the system. There was a case that you used to have to set up individual, especially if you're using local accounts rather than Active Directory or anything like that. When you set up local accounts, you would have to think about a password for everybody and then email them individually in order to let them know that their account was active and what their password was. So now what we have is the ability to generate a random password and also to then automatically email those login details to the email address you put in a particular profile. So let's just create one here. Let's go with this. I'm going to generate password Smith. Let's say claromentis.com, and then we can email those login details automatically and then hit update. So adding users from the admin side has got a little bit less strenuous. You don't have to kind of bulk import lots of people and give them a generic password so they're all the same. You can now have a kind of very secure way of generating people passwords, but also getting their login details to them. They will then get an email from the system with all of their information to sign in. So that's people, and that's new in 7.3. And then the other enhancements, there are a lot of work was done to InfoCapture. So there are a lot of InfoCapture features and enhancements that have arrived with the ability to do things like add thank you pages when forms have been submitted. The ability to kind of create triggers and all of that kind of stuff is here. And you may have noticed on Discover as well that we have an InfoCapture dashboard now, so you can pull in, you can make lovely pie charts and graphs to properly display, the content of your InfoCapture projects, which has been really successful and lots of people have had. So it's a really nice thing to look at. We also use it on Discover, so if you sign into there, you'll see the InfoCapture dashboard will show you all of your tickets and all of your change requests, etc. So that's new. And then there's just a couple of other things really. In documents, we now have an online editor feature, and this allows you to, when you check out a document from the system, automatically open it up in the application on your computer to edit it in, and then you can save it automatically back to the intranet. So you bypass that idea of downloading a document, editing it, saving it, and then re-uploading it. So that's new, and that's something we can turn on or off for you to try. And the kind of last thing is that now document commenting, we always had it, but it was slightly restricted in who could leave comments. But now all users who have move or delete rights can edit comments and make comments and that kind of thing. So those are the main features really. And like I said, I will follow this session up and send you all, if you're not on 7.3 already, the upgrade release notes for that. Okay. So any questions about that? Let's have a look in our chat box. All pretty happy? I'll give you a couple of seconds. Okay, all right. Brilliant. So, who have we got next? Let's talk to Adam. Let's open this up. There we go. Okay. Hi, Adam, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can perfectly. All right, cool. So we had a few questions that were actually really useful questions. So I think we should pretty much go through all of them. So your first question was, is there a engine available strictly for an internal department site on your intranet? So could you elaborate on that a little bit more for me?
Yeah, so inside of Publish, we have restricted areas for department documentation.
Okay.
And we've had some requests from different departments that they'd like to be able to search just what would be a particular folder inside of Publish and have the search results restricted to that.
Okay. So rather than using the search bar up here and it pulling back anything, like a folder search.
Right.
Um, so within Publish itself, and also you may have noticed as you go through a lot of the applications, you've got dedicated searches. So let's have a click on this, and switch to advanced search. Now, this is as advanced as the search gets in terms of dedicated publish searching, but what this will mean is that you only get published results rather than things from documents, forum posts, news, all of that kind of thing. And you can also choose to search through pages and publish folders as well. But there's no dedicated search through an individual folder. It's just through the publish application itself.
Okay. We have a lot of published pages, so they're still going to return a lot of erroneous results. But that's just what we were hearing from different departments in the organization.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, obviously, you have that info bar at the top there, but each of the applications does have a dedicated search, but it just searches through that application. And particularly with publish, obviously here we can see that we can just search through pages or publish folders at this point. Yeah, sorry, that wasn't.
And that could be an
But
enhancement going down the road.
well, we're going to talk about. I was going to mention because one of your questions is the best way to help us improve modules. So we'll talk about how, yeah, you can kind of where you can do that and suggest those things. I mean, I think
Okay.
one of the things we're working on at the minute is improved search, and so it would be a good time to get any feedback on what people think about search in general. I think, but we'll talk about how you can do that in a moment if that's all right.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So the next question. Uh, okay, so get ready for this one. So when using the hyperlink option, can there be a file option added to the protocol or a browse option so that the author can simply link to a folder on the network and upload from there rather than uploading to the server or pasting the URL? So that was a bit of a big one, but from what I gather,
Yeah.
are we talking about when we're using hyperlinking in Publish?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's create a page and publish. So one of the things to bear in mind when you're using Publish Editor is that that piece of software, so the CK editor itself, is a third-party piece of software. So we can make configuration changes to it in terms of aesthetic looks and what functionality is displayed. But it's very difficult for us to make any changes to the kind of the base or the core of it. So let me just make sure I know where you're talking about those. So in here, when we link, are we talking about this area here?
Yeah, we have a lot of documents that are out on network shares that people would, especially in the department only areas, that they'd probably like to link to.
Yeah. Well, I think that the ability to add an option in there is something we would have to double check is possible with the CK editor config. So we are now in 7.3 using the latest version. So what I'll do, because I don't know off the top of my head, is that actually I should have mentioned this at the beginning as well. Any questions that I can't quite answer today, I will follow up on for you. So what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to talk to our support team and also do a bit of research to find out if we can add any protocols there, or if it is just that is the option and then we have other there. Because there's no other way for us to do it other than browsing to server from this point. By default anyway. So leave that one with me, and what I'll do is I'll open up a support ticket for that, and what I'm going to try and do as well, I think would be quite nice, is any questions that we don't quite resolve this week, we're hoping to do this quite regularly, we'll try and answer in the next session so everyone knows if anybody's interested what's happening. Does that sound all right?
Yeah, it's fine.
Brilliant. All right. So the next question is about the best practices for creating an approval workflow in Publish. Okay. So let's abandon that page as well. So with Publish, really, I think the best way to create an approval process for pages is via permissions. So you have the ability to change permissions on individual folders. So if we jump into a folder now, in here, by default, it will inherit the rights from the parent folder above, which we're all probably pretty familiar with by now. So let's uncheck that box. So really, in terms of a workflow for Publish, an approval workflow anyway, it really mirrors the way that you, I guess, kind of set up a news channel, in terms that people have the ability to add and edit content, so create pages and add pages, but then you have this separation of permissions below. So what we've got here is publish pages and approve pages. So typically what I'd advise if you do want a workflow for or an approval process for a particular folder, is to use these permissions down here. So let's start setting one up. So let's go back and let's do a kind of real world scenario. So in here, what we're going to do is we're going to set up a folder, and I'm folder. Let's go for let's say we're creating a publish page folder for our support team. So oh, hello.
Hello.
Can you hear us?
Yeah. One sec. Sorry.
Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, sorry, we had someone calling in on the other line and I didn't grab that right. Sorry.
All right. It's better than hearing the dial-in tone, so that was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to create this publish folder, and uncheck this box here. So a very typical setup is, owner's always in there by default, but let's just remove it now to make this a little bit easier. So typical setup is all users on the system can view the folder, our internet administrators can do everything, but then we want to think about people who are in that interim content creator position. So what can they do, and do we want them to publish pages and approve pages and do all of that kind of stuff? So as well as being, I always think that permissions, the idea of permissions and groups and roles can be quite restrictive. You know, it's all about locking down content. It's all about making sure people don't see things they can't see. But also there's a lot of opportunity across all of the applications to actually use permissions as quite a functional thing. So what we've got here is a situation where I want lots of people, everybody on my system, to feel welcome to create content, to build content, so you have fresh content all the time. But obviously then sometimes that needs to be reviewed, and needs to be spell checked, make sure it's branded correctly, all of that stuff. So using permissions, you can open it up to collaboration and get loads of people buying into the system, making it their own, but still have that step, and make sure that the information that is actually shared is the information that you would like or is useful. So what we'll do here is we'll set up a permission setup that allows a group to contribute to their particular folder in Publish. So we've got our support group here, and I'm going to say that the support group can add and edit pages, and that's all they can do. So they can come in, they can add a page, and they can edit an existing page. So they have quite a lot of control over the domain, that is theirs. And then what we need is somebody in the middle. So we might have our support team leaders. They might be able to add and edit and maybe approve pages. And approve just means you say, yep, this page is good. Publish means it actually gets pushed to live. So let's say here in our workflow, we've got our support users come in. I'm in support. I'm going to create a page. I do that. One of my team leaders gets a notification to approve that page. And then maybe before it goes live, my content managers in there, who are content managers for the whole system, can publish pages. So by basically taking away permissions from certain group of users and then giving them to others, we've created an approval process. So there's no huge kind of status workflow behind it. It's just about using permissions in a very clever way to ensure, like you said, that actually information is shared correctly and by the right people. Another reason why this is very, very useful and something that does crop up quite a lot when you are working with lots of people creating pages is obviously in Menu Builder. When you synchronize the folder, it will pull through all of the changes that everybody has made. So if you have that approval process in the works, it's working through, it's unlikely that you will get any pages that aren't ready brought through to the menu. Obviously, sometimes that may happen, but it's unlikely that it would do, because all of those changes would need to be first approved and then published by somebody before they went live. So for me, that's kind of like a recommended best practice. And for an approval process for publish, that's as kind of close as you're going to get in terms of a workflow.
So did you say earlier that they got notified, like the people who can approve get notified that it needs to be approved?
Yeah, absolutely. So in this list, if there is someone or a group or a role who has add and edit rights without any publish and approve rights, somebody else does have it. When they create something new, those people who do have publish or approve rights should get a notification of that particular article or page being created. It works exactly.
Does that just go into communications then?
Yeah, notification in system, or however you have that set up. It's exactly the same with news as well. So with news, you have publish articles and approve articles. And if there is someone who has add and edit rights, but no publish and no approve rights, but somebody else does, you will get a notification of that. And from the front end, users will see their article waiting or their page awaiting approval. So it doesn't kind of go missing for them either. It will appear at the top of publish.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know that we're seeing that happen, so we'll have to do some testing and verify. The approvers aren't getting notified that there's pages. That's why I asked the question.
So do you have in-system messages, or do they go straight to email? How are you getting notified at the minute?
I'd look at what the system-wide is, but it should be all at the default.
Okay, well, what we'll do is, have a look to see if that works. In the meantime, if that's not working, what I'll do is I will open up a support ticket for you on that, and we'll have a bit more of a look into it for you. Does that sound all right?
Yeah, that sounds all right. In the example that you were just doing, can the support person publish but not approve?
So, no, in that particular example, the support team, the general support team, can only create content. They can't publish or approve it. Basically,
Would it be possible though?
What do you mean?
If you create content and once it's approved, that you can actually go ahead and publish it without having a third person that does the publishing.
So do you mean here you would have approve, publish, like that?
The team leader would approve it, and then once it was approved, you could publish it on your own.
Yeah, I mean, I've never tested that before, but there's no reason why you can see it doesn't block you from having any of those. It doesn't block you from having any of that. you just can't approve pages. So yeah, you can grant those permissions on that basis. I would quite like to test that as well. So if you give that a go and I'll give that a go, and I'll get back to you on how smooth that works, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so the kind of the two last questions I'm going to merge into one, because also this is something in general that would be quite cool for everybody to know. So you mentioned document workflow, and are there any improvements coming to this module? Not at current. No, there are no plans to work on document workflow. But your second question, or your last question, is what is the best way to work with Claromentis to help improve modules? So one of the things that has existed for a while, and we're currently in the process of trying to, I wouldn't say relaunch, but get it up and going again, is the community site. So it's Claromentis, community.claromentis.com, and I will send you all over kind of like an email with that information in as well. But over there we have actually let's go there. So let's do it. Community.claromentis.com. So over here, what we have is a area for you to submit suggestions. So community is very good because what we do is, as well as it's more about kind of product information, but also to get users of Claromentis to speak to each other, to talk about your best practices and how you use things. There's also lots of information about modules, new modules and features, tips and advice, and ongoing discussions and things like that. But we also have an area, an idea space that looks at suggest new applications and new modules, suggest new features and enhancements. So what we're doing is we are collecting those features, we're collecting that feedback, and we're seeing what we can do with it and how we can use it. So that's probably the best way to share your ideas with us, and then we can let you know what we can do. But it's not tied to Discover, in that the community is actually open to all of your users if you want them to use it, and it's just quite a nice place to work and collaborate and think about how you use your intranet and how we can help you use your intranet as well. So that's probably the best way to get in touch with us about feedback, new suggestions, and enhancements at this point. Obviously, if it's something more serious and you need something changed, then you could go through the change request process and we could see if we can help you there as well. So two things to bear in mind: for feedback and suggestions, we've got community, but for something that you actually want to you want to see is possible with some custom work, that would be through Discover and your change requests. Is that all right?
I'd be a little concerned as far as the change requests go and it being like customization that then has to be tested. So is it possible to get Claromentis' input as far as whether this could be a feature enhancement down the road and it could wait for that, or whether it then gets merged in as a customization?
Well, we pass on feedback and enhancements to our product team, so there's no reason why we couldn't ask if that was, on the future plans, or if something we would think about or consider, working with. But the thing to bear in mind is that obviously, as is in general for new features and enhancements, there's not always a guarantee that we can deliver them.
Right.
So, but of course, it's perfectly, I think, definitely part of the process. We will let you know if this is feasible or not, and if we are going to use that feedback and those enhancements, we will let you know, and if we're not, we'll let you know why, and maybe what we would do with that in the future, or if there's any other ways we can help.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so I went a lot quicker than I thought, but if they're still here, Charlie and Faye, are you still here? Let's unmute you. There we go. And Adam.
Hiya.
Hello. Hiya. How's it going?
All right, hello.
Okay, brilliant. So I know we've got a couple of questions from you on documents, and a part of I'll just I don't know, is Faye with you as well? Is it just you?
No, I think she hasn't been able to come, unfortunately.
Yeah. So yes, I think these are a couple of questions that were from Charlie and Faye who work together, but I think they're quite useful ones just to know about as well. So their particular situation is they're getting lots of content to be ready to move to the Claromentis system. Um, so a lot of it was about how to locate specific documents, and also is there a way to kind of report or view the amount of times a particular document has been accessed, rather than just by who. So these are all questions that initially there's not a clear-cut way to do that, but what I thought I'd do is just introduce some ways that you can look at documents from the admin side that should kind of help with that if they can. Okay, so with document management, each individual document has its own audit trail. Also, each folder has its own audit trail as well. So if you go into Documents Admin in the front end, and if we click on a particular document, hopefully I've got some uploaded. No, preparation is key. Let's upload some documents. So let's upload a couple of user guides. There we go. So we're going to upload a couple of documents. So when you have a document in the system and you click into it, you can see when it comes to preview, one of my kind of best practice with tips in general is that where you see a small triangle, always click it because there's always something useful in there, and sometimes it can hide lots of lovely features which you might miss. So here we've got this little triangle here which shows us takes us back to the particular folder we're in, but also we've got this little drop down here as well. So if we click that, what it will do is it will give us right at the system the ability to view and audit those and also view a version of the document. So if we have a look at audit log, we can just here show you who has viewed that particular document, added the document to the folder, etc. Charlie, I'm just going to mute you for 1 second. It's loud.
Brilliant.
It sounds a little bit loud. Okay. Hopefully my sound's still okay as well. I'm just going to double check that. All right. So yeah, so each particular document has this audit trail behind it. So as well as looking at document revision history, you also have this audit trail, which can be quite good. And you can also get those if we click back here to a particular folder. If we view properties, you'll also see on the right hand side of view properties, you've got view audit log over there. So again, you can see who has changed information on a particular folder and who has viewed that. Now, one of the parts of the question would be just to count rather than by who. So how many times a particular document has been looked at. And that obviously sounds a little bit more like analytics than this audit trail. So as it stands by default, there's no particular way to narrow down how many times a particular document has been viewed on the system. But there are kind of other areas where you can find out more information about a particular document. So if you go into documents here, documents admin, so we're going to admin and into documents. You have a few additional features here, like you can view document reports, and if we click into there, you can see you can do things like view the number and size of documents, and you can also run detailed reports on documents and folder structures. Now, this is particularly useful if you are looking at moving a lot of content at once, especially if you want to have a look at things like, permissions, how big your documents are, and the actual folder structure of the system as well. So Documents Admin Panel is one of those panels that has a lot going on in it, but there is a lot of kind of functional information in there as well. So reporting and permissions reports are quite good, especially if you're trying to hunt down and work out what document belongs to who, and who can see what documents on the system. But in terms of a count dedicated for each document, that's something we just don't have at the moment. So again, if you have any suggestions or enhancements, please pop over to the community, and you can drop them there as well. Okay, cool. So is there a way... so the other question is about finding links to a document. And I think this question is based around having documents linked to publish pages, and then finding out if those links are referenced anywhere else before you kind of delete them or get rid of them. At the moment, there's no way to double check where a specific document is sitting from a published page. It's just not possible. Okay, cool. All right, so Charlie, also just before we go then to round up, you did have a question about Policy Manager. I'm not sure if you want to ask that because I know you're waiting for the new version. But is there anything in particular you'd like to ask about Policy Manager?
There's quite a few different bits, so it might be better to leave it for another time.
Okay, cool. Well, that's very honest and helpful of you, as it is now. Okay, so brilliant. So what we'll do then is thank you so much everyone for coming. I knew that we'd be a little tight for time with an hour. What we do is kind of get any feedback you might have about the session. If you'd like it to be a little bit longer, if you'd like it to be at any particular time, if anything would help. And what I'm going to do, as I already mentioned, if there's anything that I haven't answered today, we will roll that over to the next session. And I think this one went relatively well, so we'll potentially start them up weekly. But also I'll follow up any questions on email, and please don't forget that we're here on Discover and on the community. So we'll help you where we can. Adam, I don't know if you're still on the call, but I'll pick up those issues that we discussed as well. And if there's anything I've missed out, please give me a shout, and I'll make sure we get that on the list for next time. And like I said, I will share this video with everybody after the call as well. So yay, we made it. Thank you very much for being patient. Apologies for any technical hitches. We'll try and get that more refined as time goes on. And yeah, thank you so much for coming. It was great to have your questions and also to have you here. Brilliant. Thank you very much, and hopefully we'll see you potentially at the same time next week.